Welcome to the February 27th, 2023 Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees meeting. Karen, have we taken attendance? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, could I have a motion to go into closed session for discussion of labor negotiations?
So moved.
Second.
That's a roll call vote.
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman?
Yes.
Trustee Sullivan?
Yes.
Trustee Silva?
Yes.
Trustee Trudell?
Yes. Okay, so we will recess to closed session and we'll be back for our regular And we are back at the February 27th, 2023 Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees regular board meeting. So have we taken attendance again? Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. And do we have any citizens' comments?
I have one at this point in time, Don Richburg.
Okay, Dawn, welcome to come right up.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees. My comments actually are pretty much what I've already emailed you all, but I just wanted to come and, say it in public and have it on the record and, hear from you all. So, my name is Dawn Richburg, and I've lived in Ann Arbor for almost 35 years, and I have been using the library for all of those years. I know Jamie, and she can tell you I'm a fan of libraries and books. I also actually served here as a clerk several years ago between teaching gigs. So thank you for allowing me to comment, and thank you for Una Solomon for responding, acknowledging the receipt of the email and saying that you would consider the questions. I appreciate that. Okay. As I noted in my email to you, I recently submitted a suggestion that the library add administration/staff information to the AADL website. In his response to my suggestion, Director Eli Nyberg, is that correct? Right. Okay, Nyberger wrote that the quote, staff is not the story at AADL. And I would like to hear a little bit more about that rationale for not posting that information, but I still think that it would be a good thing to do in terms of in service of the patrons and the community at large. Most libraries post that information, and I don't think doing so would make the staff the story over the quality of the services that are provided to the patrons and the community. As a patron, I believe that all the people who serve the library, including the admin team and the staff, are an important part of the story. And you guys probably know better than I do that like some libraries post just like a name and the title. Others, like the Ypsi District Library, they not only post the name and the title, but they also post people's pictures, the work email, and the work phone number. And when I made my suggestion, I was just, I could see how maybe posting all that information might not be, well, I could see pros and cons, let me put it that way. And, but at least a name and the title, I think, is like just a basic thing that the board and the director and whoever makes these decisions should consider. Let's see, I haven't been able to find any libraries around our region that don't post something to that effect. And I know that having lived here 35 years, I know Ann Arbor likes to see itself as different and unique, but I don't think different in this case is better, and I'd love for the library to consider this request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so our meeting is not typically structured to be a dialogue, but we're happy to hear your comments, and we may have a chance to have a response at some point over the course of the meeting. So moving on the agenda, we go to the financial reports.
Okay. All right, so your financial report begins on page 16, after the check register. And just to pull out a couple highlights there for you. So this is the time of the year when our cash typically decreases because we've collected almost all of the revenue that we will be expecting to receive. So our cash did decrease $1 million between December and January. At this point in the year, we've received 101% of our budgeted tax receipts. That's great. Again, we budget conservatively in those moments, and we will expect that to come in maybe another 0.5% or 1% by the end of the year as really late delinquent payments continue to come in. So that does trickle in through the course of the year, so that might tick up a little bit higher. But it's good to know that our budget number, that we were not expecting to receive more than we actually have received, but instead less. Our fund balance activity, our fund balance increased from $6.6 million to $6.7 million. What that basically means is that we basically kept pace on our expenditures versus our revenues in the month of January. Looking at the top of page 17, so only $150,000 is still due from other governmental units for penal fines and state aid. Some of that will be coming, I believe some of that just arrived, so that will be showing up in the February financials. You can also see here, skipping down to revenue over under expenditures, current revenues are 58.06 of the approved budget. We are 58.3% of the way through the year, so that's right on track. And current expenses are 52.5% of the approved budget. So we are under where we want it. That's what we want to be, is be a little bit under at this point of the year after 7 months. So, and as we said, the actual cash receipts 101.1%. On grants and memorials, nothing here much to notice other than I have been notified by the Friends of the Library that they will be giving us a donation in this fiscal year. We've not received funding from the Friends since prior to the pandemic, and so they are doing well and they're in a good position. So not only are they planning to give us a donation this year, which will be as part of the resumption of their membership drive. They're going to start a new membership drive. They've got some great ideas, and they're kind of building out some infrastructure that they've never had as an organization as far as a membership and keeping people active members. They've also already told us what we can expect to receive from them in the next fiscal year, which is just the right time of year for us to be hearing that, because now we can budget a number that we can expect to receive from the Friends for the next fiscal year. So that's good news. They're doing well, and we've got that information already going into next year. And then just jumping over to the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes on page 19 again. We're 58.3% of the way through the year. If you look at revenue, we got a couple outliers here. The MEPSers, that all comes in one chunk, and it's a little bit more than we were expected. MEPSers is the pass-through where the state gives us money that then we give back to the state, basically, for the state public employees retirement program. So that program, we only have a few employees who are still covered by it, but there's this pass-through thing which you see shows up both on a revenue and expenditure side. However, you can see that we budgeted to expect to receive very little in terms of investment gains, and we've already received over 200 or almost 200% of what we expected to receive for this year. We didn't know what to expect with bond returns. When inflation goes up, the bonds decrease in their book value, and we have to book that as a loss. So in times of high inflation, so you can start to see here that our investments are doing better, and so we're in a good spot as far as that, but it's not a large amount of money overall for the budget. You can also see here, again, grants and memorials is running ahead, but we only budgeted to receive $5,000 because we never know what's going to come in there. Library fines, fees, and other, at this point, that's almost exclusively replacement costs because we don't charge overdue fines anymore, with the exception of overdue fines on MELCAT items, which come from other libraries, and ILL items, because those aren't our items and not our policies. You can see we've already received almost 100% of our non-resident fees for the year. We budgeted $10,000. We've already received $9,800, so that's going well there. And the last line, rental revenue, that's our income from Sweetwater's as our subtenant. And that's right where you'd expect it to be this time of year. There was not a payment that was received in January, which is why you see a dash there. And it's just because of the time of the month that the check arrived. Salaries and wages, you can see we're at 53.6%. That's where we want to be at this point of the year, just a little bit behind. But you can see benefits, again, are over, as I've been talking about. We made some sort of a miscalculation. We were anticipating our budget for benefits for this year. And we'll need to make an adjustment to that at the end of the year, and we will be drawing from that experience as we are making our budget, our benefits projections for next year. You can see there, again, the MEPSR's pass-through, it's the exact same percentage. And the one other thing that is like above or below 58%, you can see copier expense is running a little bit above, but again, that's a $50,000 budget line for the whole year, so not a major expenditure. And that's just something that we're not entirely in control of. It basically depends solely on how much patrons print. Then similarly, repairs and maintenance running just a little ahead, but that's something that typically has some big ticket items. We'll see where that winds up as we get closer to the end of the year. Other operating expenditures, that's just a catch-all for a couple of small lines. You can see that's only $27,000. But again, it's almost all of that has been spent so far this year, so we may be making an adjustment to that line as we get to the end of the year as well. And I do draw your attention to that we've only spent 10% of our capital outlays. Most of that was intended to be for equipment and furniture for the plaza, which we are not yet ready to purchase. There will be an option at the end of the year for you to move any excess into the capital fund where it can continue to be spent on this in future years. But we also have, we're already having some discussions with, there's a great company in Novi that is doing electric delivery trucks. So we may be wanting to move on one of those things this year as we see what they're, our big question for them is, have you sold any of them to places that have winter? And they have. They have some in New York and they have some in Ontario, so places that have winter. So we are in the process of looking at that. And it would be, really, we are not planning to get rid of the internal combustion one at this point, so we have a backup. Because currently, we only have the one truck, and if it goes offline, we have to rent one, because we can't not do the route. So that's coming up with that. But you can see there, the bottom line, revenue over under expenditures at this point running about $1 million under budget at this point in the year. And I anticipate we'll probably finish pretty close to that, depending on if we decide to make any big ticket moves toward the end of the year. That's the financial report. Any questions about any of that?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. So moving on to committee reports. So we've had one committee meeting since the last meeting, which was the first meeting of this new executive committee of me, Molly, and Anna. We talked about a few different topics that have come up, including some questions that instigated by some questions from the public about the staff masking procedure in the building. And after some conversation with Eli, we've decided we're going to continue with the status quo. I think when we first started masking in the system, the administration had a pretty good sense of what the criteria would be to try to change that practice, and we're still comfortable with that criteria. And so unless we hear otherwise from staff in a significant way, we're comfortable with keeping things going, and people seem comfortable with the practice of masking, and the community, I think, especially people who are vulnerable and otherwise at risk, particular risk, really appreciate that level of protection. Another thing we talked about is Ms. Richburg's questions about putting staff on the website. And as of, I think, today, we do have the director and associate director's names, titles, emails, and phone numbers on the About page.
The Contact Us page.
Or the Contact Us page, right. Along with the Ask at AADL and the form, which is by far the best way to get in touch with the appropriate staff member to get your request routed. And we had some conversation about what it would mean to add a larger staff directory, and at this time I think we're comfortable with the administration's kind of balancing, staff concerns about their identities being publicized and really effectively managing communications from the public and making sure people get responded to effectively within the system. So, but that was one change we did support and make. We talked a little bit about the upcoming survey results, which we'll be receiving hopefully soon, about our annual, or is it annual? Periodic?
It's biannual,
Every other year.
But we haven't done one since 2018.
Okay, so this new survey we're doing, so we periodically ask a series of questions to the public just to kind of get a read on a whole variety of topics of interest to the library. Many of the questions are ones we've done for many years, and we'll be hearing the results of that survey coming up. Yeah, and we talked a little bit about the presidential transfer and the director evaluation process and a few other kind of executive committee things. We set our schedule, but that was about it. So that's all for the executive committee. Any questions on that?
I do
Jamie,
have a
yeah.
question. I've talked to like a couple of you about this individually, but I want to like sort of enter it into our discussion more publicly. I want to like follow up about the masking. I think that like for the most part, I most strongly feel that like if people are not complaining about needing to wear a mask, that you should proceed how you feel best. And I think you have made that decision. But I still would like to say that I think that if I were working a shift that was almost entirely out in the public, that I would want to know if there would be some point in the future when I would not need to do that. Like, I think I would be like, okay, I can get through this for now. But I think I would want to feel like this is not just always and forever now. Or like some acknowledgement that that might not always be required. And I just wondered if you had any discussion of like how you would know how to make that decision, or if you have any comments about that.
Well, so what I've had in mind from the very beginning was that, and actually we had presented this to a board meeting in, I believe, fall of 2021, I think, when we were talking about the different levels and what levels of service we would have at each one, is that I think that when it makes sense to discontinue the requirement for staff masking, either when we reach the A level on the old My Start map, the set of standards that they had at the very beginning of the pandemic. The A level is a level of new cases daily between 7 and 20 new cases per million. So Washtenaw County has just about a third of a million. So it's really a third of that is the level of new cases locally. If we get down to that level, which we're not that far from, but it's also, we're pretty flat at the moment. Mm-hmm. But if it got down into that A level, meaning below the B line, into the A level, that would be the time I think we would make that move. Or, because it's entirely possible, that will never happen.
Right.
If the Washtenaw County Public Health Department stops producing daily COVID stats. Mm-hmm. To me, it's like when the health department is no longer on a daily basis tabulating the new cases, that's a sign at which that the risk profile has changed. So those are two things that are not driven by us, and either one of those things would be a case in which we would be looking at discontinuing the mask requirement. However, we've already decided that at no point would we not allow masking among the staff forever. Any staff who would like to mask at work are always welcome to do so going forward indefinitely. So it's really about when we would stop having a requirement for that. And those are the criteria that I had in mind.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And like, I mean, we talk about this all frequently. I'm like a broken record about how I used to work in this environment, and I got sick a lot when I first started, and I can imagine that if I were doing that job now, that maybe I would just be like, okay, I'm just gonna mask to do this. Or maybe I wouldn't, I don't know. Like, maybe I would get sick of it and want things to be different, or I would want to smile at kids or things like that. You know, like when I take my daughter to the pediatrician, I can sort of see the strain where she's trying to like emote through the mask, and she sort of, it wears on her. So I think I just still like interested in making sure that some of those like other things are coming up, even though I fully respect this like statement you're making to a community that feels often cast aside and not, you know, considered. So I mean, I respect that, and I want to make sure that, but I also wanted to like make sure we all had a discussion about it beyond the executive committee.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, and just for my part, like from that conversation, the only other factor that would weigh on me is whether we were hearing from staff in any kind of significant way, you know, to reconsider that. And I think if we were hearing a message that this is coming up from the staff, then it would be a different question. But because there isn't really any sign that staff is any concern about it, I think the public health, balance makes sense. So but that we did talk a lot about all of those different factors and what would make the most sense.
Great.
Any other comments, questions? The only thing I want to just make sure I say to the board and all of you is that this agenda is our agenda. So if you have things that you want to get on the agenda, come to me, talk to Eli, talk to any, and we can figure out when and where we can put things on the agenda and shape them. So don't hesitate to reach out.
And it doesn't need to be resolutions either. It can just be a
Right.
discussion or information, things like that.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. Next up, we have the library report.
Okay. All right, so here's our monthly report for February 2023. So I really didn't want to do door count again for the stat of the month, but then the past week happened and we had to do door count for the stat of the month. So over the ice storm period, so Thursday through Sunday, our total door count across all locations was 24,411, which is about twice what it would normally be. Our peak day was Thursday with 7,065 entry. Westgate had a total of 9,281 visits over the 4 days. Westgate's high was that 2,992. You can see it there, the blue line on the chart on Thursday. You can also see that Friday was almost as busy at Westgate as Thursday was, and then things fell off to a more normal level. You can also see really clearly here what normal looks like. That red spike a few weeks ago was AAFAX, the Fiber Arts Expo, which I've got a slide about coming up here. But you can see downtown and Westgate very commonly have about the same amount of door count, and then the other three branches have about the same amount. And you can see then what we had over the past weekend was on Thursday, downtown was a little bit busier than a busy normal day. Right? The branches were busier than a busy normal day, but you can also see Traverwood was only a little bit busier than a normal day.
The north side had power.
Because the north side had power, that's right. You can also see, interestingly, that our busiest day at downtown was on Sunday because of the Pokemon party. So Pokemon will put the butts in the seats for sure. So we had great turnout, probably about 250 for that event altogether. So that was a lot of Pokemon fans showing up in our pre-Pokemon Day Pokemon event. So that was thanks a huge amount to all of the staff who participated, especially the staff who volunteered to stay late on Thursday to keep it open. There were good attendance late, but it wasn't huge, and it was relatively easy for us to decide that it wasn't worth staying open late the following nights. Also, and we'll talk more about this after we've had our debrief with the city, we did offer overnight shelter at Westgate Branch on Thursday night, and there were very few takers for that, and no takers at the city's other facilities. And it went down as the night went on, so people were actually leaving between midnight and 2 a.m. So that's something that when we debrief with the city, we'll be talking about what is the best role for the library's facilities in that, what are the role for their facilities, and also how they can attempt to understand the needs, some of which that we were hearing over our call center over the weekend. So it was a very busy weekend at the library, and thanks to everyone for making it happen.
Are you going to talk about how our new generators did?
We didn't need them.
You're kidding.
Our branches,
All five?
we have 3 generators, so it's like Traverwood, Mallets, and Pittsfield have generators. They all had intermittent power outages, but from Thursday morning on, they all had power the whole time. So it's like, and that's because we bought the generators. It's the umbrella rule, right? So we were all set. And when we were talking about, like, what do we keep open? If we're short on staff, what do we keep open? Well, the first thing we said is, well, if there's a building on generator, that's the one that's staying open because that's in the part of town that most needs it. But just through luck of the draw, it just so happened that all the buildings had power come Thursday morning. We definitely had blips Wednesday night when the grid was falling apart. But come Thursday morning, everybody was on grid. So we were happy to be able to do that. But we are prepared in the future. We did stop and think, well, we're putting everybody at Westgate, but Westgate's the one without the generator, right? But we have some hardware out there, but it is rented space, so it's a different sort of investment to think about that. Okay, any questions about that?
Well, just that, like, oh my gosh, you had quite the week, and we were really
Yes.
grateful to all the staff. My goodness.
It was very interesting because it was very busy, but it's a very different audience than the normal audience. And it is
Exactly.
in many ways self-sufficient. They just need a chair, so it was, other than just having so many people in the building, I think that it was a very normal day at work for the most part.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so as we said, our first ever Ann Arbor Fiber Arts Expo happened just a few weeks ago, February 12th. The door count for that event was 2,817, which is about 12 to 1,500 more than a regular Sunday. Because we're library people, we didn't actually realize at first that we scheduled this on Super Bowl Sunday. But so many people said what a great counter-programming it was. It's going to be a tradition now. This will be our Super Bowl Sunday event going forward. What could be a better fit than the Fiber Arts Expo? So it was a super great event. Everybody had a really good time. A real smash hit for a first-time festival. Any questions about that? Speaking of festivals, festival season is upon us. And beginning with another new festival, the Game Designer Expo on Saturday, March 18th. It's a bunch of local game designers sharing their tabletop and video games, all kinds of stuff. And you can walk around and see what people have to offer, as well as we have some talks and demonstrations and workshops. So that's coming up Saturday, the 18th from 11 to 5. Saturday, April 22nd, we'll be doing a record show for Record Store Day. That's been something that we've done the past several years prior to the pandemic. Very successful event, something which the Friends get some good traffic as well, because people who like old stuff are often looking for the things that the Friends have in the bookshop. So there's lots of opportunity for that. The Friends are also going to have their big bag sale. They have a bag sale coming up on the previous week. That's not the 22nd, the 15th, April 15th. So they will be having a bag sale that weekend. And Saturday, May 6th is ACME, the Ann Arbor Creativity and Making Expo, formerly known long ago as Ann Arbor Mini Maker Fair. The organization that owns that name was getting real prickly about it, so we just chose a different name for it. So that is the Ann Arbor Creativity and Making Expo. Basically, anyone who has made something that they want to share will have an opportunity to do so at that event. Then on Sunday, May 21st, the Gardening and DIY Festival. That's like home canning and home soaps and all kinds of stuff like that, as well as all the gardening. And we should be ready into seed sampler season by that point. The seed sampler will be returning this year, and so we'll have some more information about that. And then on Wednesday, June 7th, that's the middle of the week, that's Visions, our assistive technology fair. Been doing that one for a long time, and it has recently returned to the downtown library, and that's a really great event because it pulls in really a regional audience from all over Southeast Michigan. And then Saturday and Sunday, June 10th to 11th, it's the triumphant return of A2CAF, the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival. That will be at the downtown library on the 10th and the 11th, and got a lot of great artists coming for that, a lot of national artists. It will be a really fun and great event for anyone who loves comics. So that's festival season. And then we got something new to announce. So some of you may remember the Water Hill Music Festival, which everyone was very excited by. It was a great community event. We reached out several times over the years trying to help kind of handle the information. But it turns out that there is an international festival that happens on the summer solstice every year called Make Music Day that started in France. And there's now a fairly robust organization producing this here in the U.S. that operates out of Brooklyn. And in 2022, last year, 104 cities around the United States organized 3,819 free concerts for Make Music Day. And the idea is very similar to the Water Hill Music Festival, in that anyone can say that they're a venue and anyone can say that they're an act. And what this organization does is gives a really great infrastructure for matching them up. So the library has signed an agreement with the Make Music parent organization. We will be the anchor partner for the city, and we will be helping everyone post their venues, and our own spaces will be some of the venues. We're talking with our friends at the Summer Festival about making some of that happen and having, because I believe that's a Wednesday this year. No, it's either Tuesday or Wednesday, I don't remember. But if the festival is live that night, there's some opportunity to do some things on site there. And it should be a really great event that will really grow over the years. We've got some partners on campus that are working on this with us, as well as the Summer Festival. So this should be a great new thing. The library is a really obvious anchor partner for this. There are other towns where the library is the anchor partner, just to kind of like be the place that manages the information. Because that's really all there is for this, is managing the information of venues and performers and making sure it all goes together. And we're very excited about this event. So that'll be coming up June 21st. Any questions about that? Yes.
Yeah, is there going to be any streaming or anything for accessibility? Just thinking about that. I mean, I know, like, just for if there's something close to here just for those that maybe are homebound or want to be involved but can't?
There's definitely opportunity for us to do that in our own venues. It is supposed to be outdoors, so it's a little bit trickier to do that, but it's definitely something that we'll be looking at. And of course, all the other venues are welcome to do that. But it's something that we'll be looking for an opportunity to do. We try to do streaming as a default for most of our events. There is a wrinkle with that in stream licensing with the music pieces, because in some cases they may not have, well, they will not likely have the rights to stream their performance, especially if unless they're performing original music. So, but it's something we will look for the right opportunity. Thanks for asking about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, here's our staff spotlight for this month. This is Abby Schell. She's our HR staffing coordinator. She's worked at AADL for 12 years. She started as a desk clerk and has been working in HR for quite a number of years. And what do you wish people you worked with knew about you? That I feel so incredibly lucky to work with all of them. We really do have an amazing staff, and that's always a great thing to hear from HR. So Abby is definitely the glue that holds a lot of the organization together. She makes the schedule. And everybody who is in a place, it's because Abby put them there on the system. So Abby does a great job for us, and cute picture of her and her family there. Thank you, Abby. Okay, here's the ADL in the community. This is a very unique project that came out of our Fifth Avenue Press publishing imprint. We were pitched and we accepted a scholarly history of the Ann Arbor Film Festival and the movement that led up to it, titled Cinema Ann Arbor by Frank Yulee. And it's a 344-page book, and our team did all the design on it. They did the exterior design, we designed all the pages. It's very much like a coffee table book kind of design. It's not a very text-heavy work. I mean, it's a lot of text in it, but every page is a designed page. And we were delighted to partner with the University of Michigan Press. They will be releasing this as one of their releases, so it's our first ever collaboration between Fifth Avenue Press and the University of Michigan Press. They're having it printed, and there will be some copies that will be available, just a small number for the actual film festival, and then it will be available in wide release in June, and it'll be part of our upcoming release, our next upcoming release party that we have for the Fifth Avenue Press, which will be happening at the Carytown Book Festival, which will be happening here in this building in September. So we'll have more information as that gets closer. But this is a very exciting project. We're really delighted to be able to make it really sing as a work, and then for it to be something that was really ready for a scholarly press to then put directly into production. So congratulations to all of our team that worked on this. I know we put a lot of work into pulling this together. We licensed a lot of materials from the Ann Arbor News and got a lot of historical information. It's really a very interesting story, and in some ways almost an unrecognizable Ann Arbor that is represented in this book. It's much weirder and funkier. And it's a great story to learn about the history of the film festival and the cinema movement.
I was just gonna ask you about the image licensing. I mean, that seems like it would be not insignificant with the coffee table book.
Yes, I mean, well, a lot of it came from our own archives.
Okay.
So, but then there was a number of things that did have to be licensed. Yeah. Okay, here's another image. If you haven't seen this down in the lobby, we have this as the Selma to Montgomery Lego mosaic by artist Aaron Liebman, and it was taken down over the weekend to go to be exhibited at Brick Bash. It is now back in the building, and we're talking with Aaron about a permanent home for it here in the building, or a semi-permanent home, and that he would still be able to take it to other exhibits when appropriate. And where I would really like to put it is on the first floor landing where the painting called Spring Swimmers is, the green guys holding their arms up above their head. And we'll find a place to relocate that piece of art somewhere else in the building, because that's a really perfect place for this. And it's so cool to be able to see it from a distance and then get up close to it and see that they're all individual Legos. And so we're very excited for that possibility there. It's a really great work, and we're hoping to give it a nice home, high profile there on the first floor. Mention of the month from Bee Present Honey. They checked out a thermal imaging camera to check on how their bees were doing. And the thermal camera shows how the cluster is keeping warm, the red-white area. Bees don't hibernate. Bees cluster with their queen in the middle. They move their wings to create heat and move through the hive, slowly eating their stored honey until spring flowers bloom and they can again forage. Thanks, AADL, for letting us borrow the camera and check on our girls. So that is a very cool use of library material to make sure their bees are doing good. All right, and a compliment of the month. We actually have 3 because there's just a couple that we actually had to share. Here's one of them. Patron said that she had a great time with her kids at Drag Bingo and is grateful to have a library that supports activities like this. She said it makes a big difference. And the performer, Jaden Black, just does such a terrific job with those events. We had a packed house, well over 100 turned out for that. And that's just been a very successful partnership, and we're looking forward to doing more of those. Here's another comment. A patron stopped me while I was shelving holds to tell me how much she appreciates the hold service. She has a hard time browsing the shelves with her mobility problem, so she's happy to have the whole library accessible to her still. And that's, we love to hear this because the hold system is a solution to a lot of different types of problems that people have accessing the library. And in many cases, you know, with the physical spaces being what they are, we have to use all the shelves, even some of the shelves that are not always accessible as we'd like them to be. Because we can't really remove 10,000 items from the collection to make sure that everything is universally accessible for self-service. But it is universally accessible because we will get anything for anyone through the hold system or on demand. And so that's just something that comes up from time to time. And we were delighted to have this comment where someone has realized that the hold system makes sure that the entire collection is available to them conveniently and universally. And then here's one more. Patron thrilled we got the Enchroma indoor Dutan and Protan glasses. Her sons were just diagnosed with color blindness, and the glasses are too expensive for her to order without trying them out first. These are those glasses that are tinted in a way that helps people with color blindness differentiate between different colors. And they're a great thing to try before you buy because it's impossible to know if they're going to work for you. So that's a great use for the tools collection. And then our complaint of the month. Patron came up at Pittsfield and said, I must congratulate you for being able to sit here and listen to that thing go off, referring to the Bernoulli exhibit that shoots the balls up in the air, without going insane. They then said how it was loud and this was a library and quietness used to be a sacred thing in libraries, but now it's not. We always try to have places that are comfortable for everyone. There are some quiet places, particularly at the downtown library, but our rule is about noise greater than the general noise volume. And the branches can be pretty noisy. And the other thing that often is talked about in the library industry is that people used to live 11 to a house. And everybody has a lot more square footage to them than they used to back in the days when quiet was a precious resource. Not to say we always want to have some quiet places in the library, but some library buildings will not have quiet places in them. And the branches are some of them. Now that said, Pittsfield's pretty quiet sometimes. And I think that's actually partially why, because this really can stick out because it is so quiet. At a busier branch, people probably wouldn't notice the noise quite as much. Okay. And then finally, we are releasing tonight our annual report. This is for the year that ended June 30th, 2022. And this is just a small highlight here. And you can see this online at aadl.org/annualreport22. The one thing I want to point out here is 74,996 active card holders. In prior years of the annual report, we used to report the number of card records that we had, which isn't really a super meaningful metric because a lot of those people have moved away or moved to another plane of existence or have stopped using their card for whatever reason. It's much more useful for us to know how many people are actively using their library, meaning they have a library card that is not expired. For years and years, we always had that number was right around 48,000. That was what it was for years. And then it started creeping up. And here, in the past year, we have almost 75,000 active card holders. With a service population of 160,000 individuals, and knowing that a lot of households use a single card for their entire house because it's really easy to do it that way, we're delighted by what that number is. And this number, 8,403 new cards issued this year, is a new high for the time that we've been tracking this. So it's really great to see that number of new cards. We're delighted to see that and looking forward to many more. So if you have any other questions about the annual report, you can find it online at /annualreport22. That's my report for this month. Any questions?
If you go back one,
Oh, sure.
so now we have to try and get 1 million door count, right?
Well, we have had well over 1 million.
We have, okay, okay.
Because this period began, we were still closed.
Right.
We were still in vestibule service for the first 2 days of that period. Then we closed for 3 days to transition into regular service. So this is really the year of transition from COVID operation to normal operation. You can also see number of programs that we didn't do a lot of programming during the first half of this year. It was mostly all virtual. So this is really the story of the year. I mean, we have in the past had 1.4, 1.6 million visits to the library. So this is really just about You know, in many cases, we're still seeing about 2/3 of normal door count compared to pre-pandemic. So this is in keeping with that.
Can I ask a question about, for YouTube, is that the only social media you're tracking, or are you considering that not? social
Well,
media?
we are looking at that more as a video platform. We're not really looking at it as a social media platform because we don't get a lot of engagement other than just views. So that is primarily listed YouTube there because that was programs in place of in-person programs. That was
Oh,
our
gotcha.
main. So it's like that's only there because there were so many virtual-only programs. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Ferndale has a good TikTok, so just saying, we're getting trounced there.
Okay, any other questions?
I do kind of want to ask more about the like Fifth Avenue Press thing.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think like partnering with the U of M Press and like having more of a coffee table book, those are like two ways of leveling up. And I would love to hear more about like ways you feel like that, because you've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to do more things like that? Is that the direction you want to go? Like,
You know, it's interesting because we occupy this space that is not self-publishing, but it's not self-publishing either. Because it's like, if you want copies of your book, you got to pay for them.
Right.
This is the first time that hasn't been the case. Now, it's a very unusual pitch for us, but we're definitely interested in finding more ways to do this sorts of things. We have our Ann Arbor Adventures series, which are like picture books that are about going to different places in Ann Arbor. We've got some more of those coming. We've got a cookbook coming. We're starting to, in some cases, have a little bit stronger hand in what we'd like to see published, as
Right,
opposed to just waiting for the pitches. You know, so that's kind of the next phase for Fifth Avenue Press. But we're still getting a high volume of excellent submissions. We only accept about 1/3 to 2/3 of what's pitched. And you know, we got a number of great releases coming up this year. So I think really this is the next thing, I think, where finding partners that are a publishing partner as opposed to the author solely fronting the money. But this was a very unique sort of perfect fit for that sort of thing. Did I answer your question, Jamie?
yeah, I think so. And the cookbook's like really helpful to hear about, because like all these things I think are going to require like a different infrastructure
Yes.
than like some of the print on demand that you've been doing so far. Yeah.
Now, we did, through U of M Press, find a new book printing vendor who
Okay.
they use for almost all of their work. Because we'd been using mostly local companies, and they use an overseas company for almost all their printing. But they have a lot faster turnaround, a lot better prices, as you can imagine. So for our authors, when it's not our money, our authors are, very interested in seeing how they can do that economically, particularly when someone comes into the process with a very strong vision of what their finished physical product is going to look like,
Right.
and then they find out how much that's going to cost. So it's always useful for them to have multiple options for who they have print their book. But at this point, very few of our projects are being done print on demand. Almost all of them are short run.
Okay. And that's because the author has coordinated the short run.
Yeah, it's because the author basically, they want a number of copies that's kind of outside where print on demand really makes sense. They might be getting 200 or 300 or 400 copies. So it's really into short run territory in terms of the economics of it.
Got it.
Even if the technology at the other end is very indistinguishable from a print on demand technology, it's not really being packaged as an on demand service.
Got it.
Yeah.
How did the partnership with U of M happen?
Basically, the authors went to U of M and asked them about it because it was such an unusual fit. It's like a level of design that typically is not part of U of M Press books, and then it's like a level of sort of topic and scholarly value that isn't often the sort of thing that we get pitched. So it's a very unique opportunity to work together.
Cool.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thanks, Eli. All right, so moving on to new business. So the first item we have is a resolution to approve the accounting firm Yo & Yo Extension to complete the library's audit for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. So somebody remind me, do we read the resolution first and then get a motion, or the other way around?
Yes, read the resolution first.
Okay. So I'll read the resolution. The board resolves to approve the extension of the auditing contract for the accounting firm of Yo & Yo, Ann Arbor, Michigan, to complete the library's audit for the fiscal years ending in June 30th, 2023 through June 30th, 2024 at the following rates: fiscal year 2023, audit 20,000, form 990, $1,500, and fiscal year 2024, audit $21,000, form 990, $1,600. And 2, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, so now we have a motion. Any conversation on this resolution?
I'll just quickly remind everybody that we, during the Finance Committee, had talked about having the stability of this firm, doing it for the next couple of years, because there's a new accounting system, a new executive director, and it just made sense for us to stick with them for at least a couple more years to give that continuity.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, and we have talked about this at past meetings, so is this not a roll call vote, right? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that resolution passes unanimously. All right, the second resolution is to ratify the collective bargaining agreement with AADL Staff Associates. So I will read this resolution. The board resolves as follows. 1, to approve and ratify the collective bargaining agreement effective February 27, 2023 through June 30th, 2023 between the AADL Staff Associates and the Ann Arbor District Library. And 2, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Seconded.
Okay, so any discussion on the collective bargaining agreement? Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll just say that this is an accretion negotiation, meaning that this is the revision of the existing contract that is about to expire and the changes are to bring in new members that will be joining the collective bargaining unit. And with this ratification, all library staff, except for management, HR, and Karen Wilson, are covered by one of the 2 collective bargaining agreements. We're very pleased to reach this point. And there are some small changes to the agreement, the most notable one being that there will now be sick time available to part-time employees. And there will also be a new pay scale that we are launching at the same time for our part-time employees. And we'll have some more information for that for the staff once this is signed. So we're delighted to see this. We'll be beginning the negotiation soon for an actual renewal because these contracts are just about to end up. But it's been a very productive process and we're really looking forward to next steps here.
Great, any other comments, questions?
I just want to add thank you to the leadership of the units for making this such a productive process. And we're looking forward to next steps.
All right, well, I'll borrow a phrase from our mayor and say I'm delighted that that we have now almost the entire staff represented by a bargaining unit. I think it's good for us and it's good for the staff to have that voice and to have that collective ability to come together so we can work things out together. And we've had a long, good relationship with our existing bargaining units, and I expect that to stay the same going forward. So this is great. So anybody has anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it is approved. And now we move to citizen comments. Do we have any comments come in during the course of the meeting? Yeah, please.
So I was just looking at the Fifth Avenue Press, this new proposal with the Frank Ewell, I think his name was. And I just thought, like, he's an employee in the tech department at University of Michigan. So I don't know, it just seems like my understanding, and maybe I don't understand all the ins and outs of Fifth Ave Press, but it was like for like local community authors, but that feels more to me like sort of a U of M AADL collaboration solely, and not like, that writer he's not like a community writer, right? He's like a U of M employee. So I mean, maybe that's what, the vision is for that. But when I heard that, I was like, that doesn't sound right or something. I don't know, but that's my comment.
The scope of the press is authors that live in Washtenaw County or books that are about Ann Arbor history. So this was definitely one of those that was about Ann Arbor history, regardless of where he lives.
Okay, thanks for your comment. Any other comments? No?
So hello, everyone. My name is Heidi, and I have been the co-president of the Staff Associates Union since October of 2018. So I just thank you all for your support. This is really tremendous to see our little units that were, between librarians and staff, we were 40 people, I think, in a bargaining contract, and now, like you say, pretty much the entire library. So it's been a great 16 months working on this. So we're really happy to be here and looking forward to next steps as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so with that, we have reached the end of the meeting. So we are adjourned.